Good day, everyone. All right. Let me get the link shared out here, and we'll find out quickly if there are any audio issues. All right. Let's see. Can you guys hear me all right? Give me the thumbs up there if so. Great. All right. Well, we're going to be looking at lots of charts here. I just took a TP1 on Aster. I think all in all, can't complain with how I played that. I may take some chart requests, but I'm really going to focus on the trades that I'm in and interested in taking, and then we'll see at the end if I'll take some live stream requests. I'm gonna wait just 1 or 2 minutes before I get started, just to give people the chance to get in here, and then we'll get going. Well, Bitcoin approaching all-time highs. It is likely going to take all-time highs. I think there's kind of two main ideas. I'll kind of recap how I traded Bitcoin, and this might be, well, I think it clearly is confusing to some people, but which one's the, why doesn't this toggle? What the heck? Let's see if I do this. I don't think, I mean, I use TradingView a lot. I don't think I've ever seen this where I can't click anything. Okay. Anyways, well, I can do the recap from memory. It's not too complicated. In this whole section of price action, I had the plan for a long here, and I caught literally a peak of bottom long. I TP'd here, which was at the GP at the time, and I took a short. And I did TP the short here, this low, and I can verify all of this. I can show it to you if you care, but I'm just giving a recap. And I took my long plays on Doge and now Aster. I did take other shorts. For example, I got stopped out of a short yesterday. If you're in the Discord, you'll know I got stopped out of a short at these highs. But I'm pretty happy with how I traded it. I mean, it's kind of funny in a way. Like, I'm in this long. Obviously, pretty much everyone here is aware of the trades I've taken the last couple weeks. I'm in this long from the lows, but I took a head short here. There was an initial reaction. I took it here, and I ended up getting stopped out. Then we flipped this into support. I'm actually a little bit ashamed that I didn't take this long. I actually was not paying attention here. This is when I was doing the micro time frame updates in the Discord. It was so clean. It was super clean on the low time frames. We came and took all these little local lows. Could have been super tight long setup. But you know, the funny thing is this. I'm I'm already getting, like, I posted some of my winning trades on Aster and Doge. I'm kind of getting already like multiple comments like about I took a short and I lost, and this other guy is whatever. I went back and forth with him a little bit. I don't really care, but I actually made money trading this day on Doge the day I took the short, because I took a long too. I took a long, and my initial plan was to take a long into this grinding price action and hold it for a move up to here. But I ended up taking profits here, and we can get into the low time frames, and hedging my swing long from here with a short on this rejection. And then we broke out. So I lost 1 hour here, but I actually made 2 hour longing Doge that day. So it's, it's 1 hour for the day on Doge. If you make 1 hour a day, you're outperforming 99.9% of traders. And that's kind of a bad day for me on considering I've been trading. But it's just kind of funny because you can't win every trade, right? And I don't have to. And so I want to preface that before I get started on the ideas that I'm interested in trading. I don't win every trade, and I don't need to. I want to take a brief moment, because if you don't understand this, then you have no business trading yet, right? You have to understand these concepts, because if you can't understand that, if somebody, let's just say, you have to get out of a trade by trade mindset, because, for example, I took a stop loss on my initial short from here on Aster. It didn't work out. I took a short here and I TP'd the bottom, right? I was quite bearish here, and then I longed here and I TP'd, and then I added to my long here. That was a really nice pico bottom long targeting here. Let's just say I shorted here. Let's just say I've TP'd my longs and I took a short. I'm not shorting here, by the way. But let's say I did, and I was really bearish and I thought this was going to happen. If this happens, did I win or lose trading Aster? I have some folders here from my trading plans, right? I won. I won massively, but I took a loss. And you have to get out of thinking about trading on an individual trading or trade basis, because I took a beautiful long here on Bitcoin. I took a beautiful short. I took profits. And yes, I did get stopped out. But these trades greatly outperform the losers, right? But anyways, this is incredible because, and I'll admit, it's been a really great couple weeks. But I'll just highlight a couple of these members' testimonies. This is somebody who just got a free membership. I gave away 10 free memberships to the Discord. And just showing he joined a week ago, shows 90-day P&L. Here's the thing. This is probably not utilizing proper risk management. I don't know, because I don't know the size of his account, right? But it's possible it is. Like, for example, somebody posted this the other day that they were up they joined a week ago. They're up 173 grand, 66%. Somebody said, you got to check your risk management. There actually has been about that. If you're risking 2% per trade, could have quite easily made 66% in a week on this given week. But risk management is super important. But here's the thing I want to highlight. Even though I've lost a couple trades, it's not just my equity curves. Look at the equity curves of the members. This is 3 months of an equity curve. It's just straight up. I did a video on this as well, but there's little dips, right? And those are your losses. But anyways, so we're going to get into some of these trades. I'll just go to the alt trades channel just for context. With how I traded Aster, for example. So this is a couple days ago. I do a lot of updates explaining my ideas. So this is the initial Doge trade that I was interested in taking, or that I did take rather, the breakout long. And if we go here, and this is important because I'm going to be utilizing some of these concepts in my plans, right? So this is here. I was longing a breakout here into this grindy uptrend. Arguably, I ended up taking profits too early, and we'll explain why. So we're back in the Discord now. So I basically just gave my updates explaining I don't typically take breakout trades, but when I do, what I'm looking for. And I'm looking for this kind of grinding structure into resistance. So I kind of point out some previous examples and how I just explaining how I manage the trades and saying, for example, I wouldn't take a breakout long here. It's not about where price is breaking the high. It's for me about the basing, grinding price action into the impulse, right? Now, and this was my plan, right? And that's kind of more playing out than actually how I ended up playing the trade, because I was doing some looking here on a pullback. Oh, but I was just explaining it. So I'm sharing some examples. Like, this is what I'm looking for, because this is back, before the big pump on Doge and this rounded grinding price action. I'm looking to long that into an impulse. And if we overlaid it on a fractal on that current price action, this is what we had. But then we got a little pullback, and I was thinking, hey, if we bounce here, which we did, this kind of looks like a running flat. If it's a running flat, then have to be open to these kind of ideas and blah, blah, blah. Ended up taking profits on that long and hedging my swing long from lower short. So anyways, that's how I played Doge. How I played Aster was I was just longing into this low. This ended up being the Pico bottom low. Here's me updating that I'm taking the position. Ready to fire off the rest here as we test the POC in the 786. I'm down on the 30-second time frame saying I'm longing any bounce here. And as we bounce, we start grinding up on the 30-second time frame, that rounded grinding price action. I just fire off the long. And that's where we bounce from. So then I explain my TP. That's what we just hit just now. And yeah. And this is me taking my hedge short trigger. So I took profits on my long on Doge. I had my swing long from lower, took profits, took a hedge short. We got an initial nice instant rejection, which actually ran pretty nicely. And then price ended up breaking out. So anyways, that's where we're at now. I think there's really only two ideas, as far as Bitcoin goes. We either break out or we don't. And we might see this play here. I'm going to keep things really simple for myself personally, which is if we run the high and we reject, I'm going to short. And I'm going to short this as a range. For me, it's not about a prediction. I'll just let price decide what happens to my position. So this will be my short, and I will short it back down to the lows of the range, because for me, the bearish scenario here is just that this is maybe some kind of flat, right? And a simple range. There's really no reason to overcomplicate this, because if we simply break out, then there's no reason to take a short. And if we do this, there's easy invalidation above this high. And then I would look to long the lows of the range. Wouldn't mind deviating a little deeper. Or I'll take a stop loss. It's really that simple for me here. This does have a potential look of a corrective structure, but I'll just let how price interacts with the all-time high decide. I also got stopped on an add to my shorts on ETH. But again, I'm really not displeased with how I traded ETH as a whole here. And we can go quickly. I'll just recap it. I have an individual channel for ETH and an individual one for Bitcoin. So let's go up a little bit here. I was quite bearish on ETH at the highs. And so I had multiple shorts running. This is back here up at these highs. I shorted this and I shorted this before this big sell-off. And ETH has kind of been my bearish play. So let's go back here. We ended up getting the big sell-off. And I took profits on my shorts, and I'll explain why. But anyways, this was the weekend. I was like super bearish on this weekend. I ended up actually taking a hedge long and then just cutting it at break even. Basically just saying here, this SR flip is really bearish if we can't get above it. And we couldn't. I just said, preparing for a long here. We initially got a nice reaction off the long, back up into this local range high, and then we just rejected again. And so I just pointed out that weak ETH is incredibly weak. I have no long here. I mean, there's just no point. We sold off, and then I explained that I'm looking to take profits on all my shorts here because this is the last line of defense. And if we start bouncing from here, there's no reason not to just take profits, right? And of course, we did bounce from there. And I explained that this is the level I'd be interested in adding back to my shorts, which is the level we're kind of at right now. Which I did take that short, and transparently, I just got wicked out of it. So is what it is. I still kind of think this idea is somewhat in play, potentially. But it certainly wasn't the clean rejection off these highs because we got this another impulse. But I think there might be some opportunities here. You know, if Bitcoin runs the all-time high, which it looks poised to do, there could still be some opportunities to get short on ETH, but you really got to pick your spots if you're going to be shorting or trading multiple things at once. I'll say this, just for the bearish scenario, because I don't like to get too bullish right directly at all-time highs. For the bearish scenario, if we got this range on Bitcoin, and probably wouldn't go straight down. I mean, you know, you might get something like that, right? If we got this bear scenario, which is percentage-wise 15% pullback on ETH or on Bitcoin, I do think it is possible to see an extremely weak ETH and we hit our 3K target, 36% away. So, hey, there's no reason to over risk on any trades, and there's no way to predict what's going to happen. I mean, this looks kind of strong at this moment, but that can change very quickly, right? And so I probably will be taking shorts on ETH again, hopefully, around the sweep of all-time highs on Bitcoin. I'll probably be taking this Bitcoin short. And I hopefully will be taking, I'm probably going to be taking a TP1 on Doge on my swing long at these highs. And my final target, because if you have been following my Doge trades, my final target here is to push up through these highs and then get a bigger rejection. And I can explain. What I'll do is I'll I mean, it's kind of insane, honestly, how I've been trading this. It's like wild. Wild, wild. Then I'll look through the comments and I'll answer some questions. There's so many. There's so many setups in here. It's just like this is a long time ago on ETH, like 2 week or Doge 2 weeks ago. Just looking at the 1 minute chart, but you know, we just so much clean price action. But it's kind of funny because I do so many updates in the alt channels on different time frames and different types of setups that it's like hard to it actually is kind of hard to find the specific setup I'm looking at here. This was me preparing to take the swing long. I'm in on Doge. But anyways, I won't really go. This played out really cleanly. I won't really go too far into this. I just kind of thought that this was posted here. Yeah, so this is me talking about this idea here, but I actually started talking about this exact idea here. So this is on the 6-hour chart. I think I misclicked. I meant to go 4. But anyways, that's still okay. Here's some. I was gonna go to the origin of the idea. It doesn't really matter, I guess. But you know, this is weeks ago. This is what I'm trading on Doge. Ultimately, this is the plan I like, and I think it's playing out nicely on these high time frames. It's why I'm in the swing long on Doge, and I would like to see price run up through these highs and then get a long correction or deep correction into these lows, which will be our log scale 618 and be just a nice, really technical, clean rejection. And this would align well with some kind of impulse through the all-time highs on Bitcoin, in my view. And I'd look to short a sweep of this high on Doge. Someone said we can't see anything. Was I not on Discord? This is from Discord, the plan I was trading, so whatever. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people who, again, will be upset at me if I short this and then price keeps going higher, but holistically, really happy with how I'm trading everything here. So, we do want to keep an eye on Bitcoin and order flow. I wouldn't mind ranging a bit below all-time highs throughout the weekend and then getting maybe an impulse on Monday or Sunday, but we'll see. Jose says, sorry for the question, but what is your basis to size the stop loss on the BTC short idea? It's really just thinking of it as wherever this high comes in, the entry is on a failed breakout and the stop is above that high. or the sizing is around that high. Sometimes, you know, you might want to leave a little bit of room there for a retest. Jojo's saying, so you're looking at a sweep of all-time high and short the FTR and BTC. I think it's pretty straightforward what I'm looking for. I'm just looking for price to run the high. And if it cannot sustain a breakout and breaks back below, I'm going to take the short with invalidation above that high. I don't think there's any reason to complicate things beyond that. And for example, I made these lines too thick. On Doge, I'm going to be taking a similar setup if we get a push up through this high. That'll be my TP on my long. And I'll short that back into these lows, and then I will be longing this for a swing long towards all-time highs. That's how I have my... And here's the thing. You know, you can think about... Let's just say this short doesn't work and price just goes straight to all-time highs, or, you know, whatever. You can think about all the opportunities on the charts through all time. How many trade... How incredible of a last, let's say 2 weeks of trading it's been. And many of you will have not traded anything here on Doge. You miss so many trades. But still, even here, there's massive opportunities. And the same will be true no matter what. If you take a trade and it stops out and it doesn't work, there will be other opportunities to get long, get short. And yeah, there's no reason to be too worried about the outcome of any individual trade. Just look for good opportunities, use risk management, put on the trade. Guru says, I tried to short some of this move up. How would I know not to do this and assume we'll run to range highs? I'm assuming you mean Bitcoin. I don't think there's any way to know. I mean, there's literally no way to know. I shorted on the way up as well, and I got stopped out. But it was this pretty strong trend. Like, in hindsight, if I was to play this a little bit differently, let's say with more of a bullish bias here, because I was actually live updating. So like, I think this is actually a good example, and it's actually hilarious because this setup here is identical to a long setup I took back here. It actually might take me a hot second to find this. Where was it? This? Where was that? Where was that clean running flat that appeared on the charts? There was a couple of them. It doesn't really matter, but let's just say for the sake of the example, it was essentially the same setup. It was and I had more of a bullish bias. So for example, I did scalp short this high in the New York Open on the low time frames. And then I took some scalp longs into the highs. But this is the short I got stopped out of kind of rejected and then impulsed up. So this is all low time frame, 5-minute chart. But so if we go back here, can kind of review just briefly how I traded this. So I was explaining, this is the New York Open here, 1-minute chart, all the aggression at the highs and why this leaned bearish to me into the open. And we got a really nice little rejection. This is low time frames. And then I explained why I was taking profits on that initial short as all this heavy selling came in. And I was very aware of this structure. This is where we ended up being the local Pico bottom, right? So even if I think that there's some bearish ideas here, I would maybe take profits on this short. There's some maybe scalp long ideas here. And then maybe I'd look to short a sweep of that high again. And, you know, so basically just explaining the reasoning of what I'm looking for from an order flow perspective. We're seeing really aggressive longs coming up at the highs, really aggressive selling on the pullbacks, and I don't want to hold my that short into this aggressive selling. I want to take profits, and I'm aware of all this kind of local bullish structure that can get kind of trappy. And then I even get down into, you know, basically this. I'm looking for just price to keep running higher, and we do get that. And then I was just pointing out like this, look how clean this 5-second, this is the 5-second chart. Look how controlled and clean this price action is. And so I was scalping long into this, looking for this move to the highs, playing out beautifully, just showing, you know, scalping long, and then running the highs. I took the short, and we got a bit of a rejection, but like this, but ended up running the highs. So anyways, that's how I traded it on the low time frames, and ended up not on the right side of the breakout. But yeah, if I'd probably been a little bit more bullish here, I might have held some of these longs. I did end up having to leave for the day. There was actually a really nice channeling structure into this high as well. And I think this was actually a perfect GP bounce off of this low, came and tagged the local low, got another impulse. So yeah, I would just say this. I mean, generally speaking, this is my perspective. It just depends on what your problems are in trading. Like if you feel like your problem is that you just take way too many losses, and you're not taking enough winners, then yeah, you probably have to, you probably have to find a way to take less losers. But for me, I find that the more trades I take, the better I do, because my trades have an asymmetric component to them, right? So like a trade like this on Aster only has to win, you know, it pays 6 to 1, right? So it pays for 6 losers. This pays for 8 losers, you know, that sort of thing, right? And so if I take a loss, it's really not a big deal. If the day before I took trades that paid for 20 losses, right? And so, yeah, I try not to get too over fixated on avoiding losses. I try to get more fixated on taking good trades and printing winners, because those pay for a lot of losses. And I think one problem that people run into, just in a general sense with trading, is they do think there's a way to predict what's going to happen. And there really isn't. You just define a trade. So, for example, if I take a short on Bitcoin up at the all-time highs, I'm not predicting a drop. I'm just saying I want to be short if price cannot break this high, and I don't want to be short if it is. And if it goes down, I take the short, and then it goes up. Well, then I don't want to be short anymore. And if this happens and I want to be short again, I mean, the worst case scenario is that, you know, this happens and you're really not sure what you want to do. but yeah, I would just rather put on the trade, right? If it works, it pays a lot more than if it doesn't. And the truth is, I'll be taking a trade like that 100 times. You know, this sweep of this all-time high was a trade like that. And price runs the high and you take the short and you target the lows again, right? And if it works, it pays for, although this was the target, it was actually just tagging this low. There was a really nice clean target here. If you were following my updates, I made a 30-minute video up here on why I was going to be longing here. And then I did update that on X as well. But something like this pays for 10 losses. And so let's just say I lose a short doing the same thing here. Well, this kind of idea, just in a really simple general sense, just taking this trade one time, although here I actually didn't short Bitcoin. I did reference that. I think the rejection is important. I just am going to short alts instead because I had like a bunch of alt shorts I wanted to take, and the thesis was that those are going to print more than the Bitcoin shorts, and they did, but that I think this is still an important rejection and whatever. But the idea here being that, well, I could take, if I just take this one time, I have to lose this setup 9 more times before it's not worth having taken it once. And so when you think of your trades that way, that you're going to take this setup 100 times, and even if 20 or 30% of them win, you're making a lot of money, right? Someone's asking, if you're risking 1%, do you scale full size at the level, or you scale as price progresses into full size? It depends on the setup for me. It depends how many confluences there are at the setup. Like, for example, I scaled a little bit into this Aster setup because we had like, sometimes it's like there's 4 or 5 levels all inside of a region. Like we have the point of control here. We have this 100% extension. We have this channel. We have these lows and this GP. And there's just so much going on here that all of this is kind of like interesting. And so maybe scale a little bit here and then scale a little bit off that level. But sometimes the setup is just really clean, which is like if it's the sweep of a level like that. Like I took a short on Bitcoin here, and I actually didn't short the sweep, although I thought it was reasonable to do, but I shorted a little impulse here because there's a ton of longs that came in here that got absorbed. But I would just size in fully and stop above there. This is an important question. Someone's asking. It says, hi, Lucky, I noticed that you are holding trades much longer than I am. Could you talk about how you approach taking profits? Yeah, so I think the simplest way to think about profit taking is the time frame you're trading. So, you know, for example, if you're scalping and your chart, your levels and your structure and your chart looks like this on the 1 minute chart, and you're thinking about things like this trending structure and this local high, well then your trades are kind of defined by this structure in terms of TPs and whatever. And you can do this at high time frame levels as well, but I would just say that if you're taking a long down here on the daily chart, and this is a major level, just an example because it's a long I took, your target should be a lot deeper, right? This is a swing trade. Don't turn swing trades into scalps. And what makes it a swing trade? Well, it's a high time frame major structure and level. The same thing with a short here on Bitcoin is this is a swing trade. It may or may not work, but there's no reason necessarily to be turning this just into a scalp and closing the trade here if it rejects. You want to hold these trades deep, not because you know what's going to happen, but because there's opportunities to scalp low time frame structures every day on the charts. To trade high time frame levels, those opportunities come more rarely, right? So you want to treat swing trades as swing trades. And so let's take Aster here, for example. There's, this is a pretty big move, and I think some people were referencing that they trailed out on this, but that's why I kind of was looking to give a second setup here as an example. One, to stop, maybe have people second guess trying to trail longs from lower into this level. But most of the time, you're going to get some kind of pullback to long again. But anyways, this is a high time frame level because the whole there's a couple things that probably have to be caveated here. You have to understand the idea, right? Like for me, the whole reason I was bearish from here on Aster was this whole idea. And this whole idea is coming to, I did I jokingly call it the TED Talk when I was longing the low there. But this whole idea culminates at the 100% extension. And this is a very bullish idea from here. And the idea is seen way up here. And so there is no reason to not be holding these longs deep. Because I put it like this. Why even take the trade? The trade is a good trade because this is the idea. It's too long for a bigger move. And it's not really a good trade to trade it like this, right? Like this doesn't really make any sense. And yes, you could say, oh, I should have taken profits on the bounce and because this happened. And you start thinking on a trade by trade basis. So you say like, oh, last time I took a trade and I didn't take profits right away, or I didn't close the trade right away, and then I got stopped out. And then so you do it the next time, and the next trade, price just carries on higher. You don't know what's going to happen with any individual trade, but your goal is to take, let's just say, generally speaking, this setup 100 times. And knowing if I do this 100 times, and I always hold my swing trades to swing targets, some of those trades are going to get stopped out, or I'll round trip some profits. Some of those trades are going to print to the target, and the idea would be that when you balance out all the 100 trades, you've made a lot of money. And if you're finding that you aren't making money over a series of trades, and you've taken 10, 15, 20 trades, and you're never taking profits off those trades, then there's a problem, right? But something that a lot of people are going to run into when they are trying to copy trade someone else, let's say, say you're trying to, whether you're taking this short here or you're taking this long or this long, you're just taking the trade because you see someone else is taking it, but you don't really have any experience with these types of trades that give you the confidence to hold them. And some people just have the blind confidence, and that can be good in some cases, and it can come back to bite you. The most important thing is risk management, of course. But what you'll find is, maybe you're in this long and you start to see like this pullback and you say, I'm just going to close it. And you're staring at your P&L. But I'm not, even here, right? I saw a lot of comments of people saying, hear like, oh no, what's happening to Aster? This looks bad, things like that. And for me, I'm not looking at closing my Aster long. I'm looking at adding to it because the whole idea is actually working. And the pullback is necessary in some respects and it's expected. And so if I go back, to the day, if I go back to the day of, it's all about perspective, right? It's all about how you form your ideas. But let's go here. Let's go here. All right. So if I go back to the day of this high, a lot of people right now, if you're long, this is a Discord update. If you're long from lower on Aster, a lot of people are really excited and they're seeing a breakout, seeing a lot of strength, and they're hoping that price is going to go like this. But I'm looking at this as well. This would be a great opportunity for a pullback and to add to the longs. Got the confluence here. We have the POC aligned with the 786. And then as price progresses, we start to form this nice kind of channeling structure, rejecting from the POC of here, which was also the 618. And we're getting nice extensions. So we have this whole kind of bundle of confluence along with this channel. And then this looks so scary, right? It's like this is where everybody's stopping out their longs. They're saying, oh no, maybe they long the top, maybe they long somewhere in here. Tons of break evens are hitting, tons of stop losses. But this is an opportunity on the high time frame. I think when I added, I said, now just hoping that this is a 1-2, ABC 1-2, because the 2 would come in and create a higher low. But if you've traded something like this 1,000 times, your confidence is going to be a lot higher. You're going to manage those trades a lot better. You're going to see the ideas much better than had you never traded them at all. And so, you got to think about, like, let's think about a slim edge, which would be like a roulette wheel on a casino. So, a casino has a roulette wheel present because they make a lot of money when people play roulette. And what I forget if it's 49.51 or 49.5, 50.5. I think it's 49.5 to 50.5% is the odds. So they have a 1% edge. It's very slim, right? And of course, it's essentially mathematically guaranteed that as that wheel gets spinned thousands of times, tens of thousands of times, hundreds of thousands of times, they're just making money because there's no way mathematically that they don't over long series of spins, which is why. But sometimes some individual person is going to win 5 spins in a row. They're not worried about that. But if they don't understand what's happening, so let's just say that you convert that into a trading system with that really slim edge. This is not a short setup, by the way, that I'm taking on Aster. I'm just showing an example. You're going to be really scared trading that edge, even if it's printing you unlimited money. And it's such a marginal edge. And if you don't understand the edge or the idea, you can imagine how that would be pretty scary to be taking the casino side of that roulette wheel, right? And so that can kind of be applied to trading quite directly, is that, these trades are scary to hold because you don't really understand. You haven't done it 1,000 times. If you've done it once, twice, 3 times, especially if you haven't done much swing trading, but you'll eventually have to understand that you have to hold your swing trades to deeper targets. Um, Okay, so you said, yeah, the second Astro trade is a good example. I TP at the channel highs because I thought it was a local setup. I think I missed the larger Elliott wave idea. Well, that very well may be, but I'm just saying what I said. I did say when I took it that I'm looking to TP up here, right? And so that is where I've TP'd. I use order flow on exo charts. Always asks, he says, you mentioned you want to use the size that always makes you feel like you're paper trading. Do you ever get uneasy about the size you trade? I would guess not. No, I would say this. It's basically it's a really clear sign that you're trading too big if you're uncomfortable with the trade you're in. It's not the only reason you can be uncomfortable. But I would put it like this, like 1% risk as a standard, 1 to 2%, let's say, it's kind of just a good general size that can hold up pretty well with most edges, but there are certain edges that require much less than 1% risk. And I won't go into those details. And there's probably some trading styles or systems that can sustain more than 1% risk. But if you're not comfortable with 1% risk, just psychologically, then why trade 1% risk? Just lower the risk. You really should be, in a sense, kind of ambivalent about the outcomes of your trades. Like, you can't be either thinking, oh my gosh, when this works, I'm going to be making so much money, this is insane, or oh my gosh, if this loses, I'm screwed. You can't have those thoughts, because those thoughts don't just come when you enter the trade. It comes through the life of the trade. And the problem is, unfortunately, in trading, you don't actually get paid for entering a trade. You make no money to take a long here. You actually you get paid for holding the trade. And if holding this trade, like, look what Astor actually did from here. It just actually went straight up. If holding this trade is difficult, then something probably is going on with your sizing, because this also becomes clear when you're trading lots of different setups and time frames. So it's like, so for example, if you're long on Astor here, you have these really nice longs, and you're kind of like, hey, I'm kind of sitting pretty. Like this, if this bullish idea plays out, that's great. These are nice trades. Boom, lock it away. That trade's either gonna work or it's not. Don't have to think about it. If I'm in my swing long from here on Doge, same thing, right? I can trade other time frames. If I want to what's the word? Kind of reallocate or reposition my risk a little bit, I can just take different setups on different things, right? I have this swing long. It's its own idea. I don't have to worry about it. I mean, I haven't gone into it all yet, but I also did take a long here on Doge, and I traded some of this internal price action, and I was preparing to long another sweep of that low, but it got front run. But I actually did take a long here, but took like a 0.2 hour stop loss on that breakdown. But anyways, this breakout happened while I was sleeping. But I can just leave this long sitting here, and then I can just trade other stuff. And even when I'm taking this short here that I got stopped out on Bitcoin, in the back of my mind, I can just think like, you know what? Even if this is the most bullish crypto season ever, whatever, I've taken profits on all my swing shorts at the lows. I have swing longs running on Aster and Doge that are printing 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10R. And so if I risk 1R here on a short, and I can just let those ideas play out independently, then I'm happy. And if we do get a big pullback, like let's just say that this scenario played out, and instead of having this fear of, oh, I'm round tripping my entire Doge long. Well, I hedged my Doge long short here, and I wanted to add back here. That didn't come. And I would have had a short on Bitcoin. And this long I don't have to worry about still. I'm still can just sit. I'm still sitting pretty in that long. And if price just breaks out and I get stopped out of that 1R short, then I win. I actually just win no matter what happens. And by win, I'm not saying I have a winning trade. I'm saying I make money no matter what happens. If the market went straight down there, I would make money. If it goes straight up, I will make money. And so when you start to think about your positions that way, it's you start to realize that closing this Aster long early or closing your swing long early throws off the whole balance of all your trades and kind of throws off the psychology of the trades. Because imagine had you decided, well, I'm going to take a short setup on Bitcoin, and you know what? I'm just going to close my swing long on Doge. I'm closing my swing longs on Aster. Maybe that's down here. It's not exactly where it was, but just giving the example. And maybe you start shorting everything else, and you're not even letting this trade play out anymore. That's kind of a bad situation to get in, right? So I'm a big proponent of just treating your trade setups individually and managing them individually. I can take a short here on Aster if I wanted to. I'm not going to. And I don't have to actually touch my long. I can just leave my long playing, although here I've already taken profits on my long. But this could be kind of an interesting short, honestly. If we could get weakness from here. Quite bullish so far on the low time frames. Not something I would short aggressively into this level because it's just grinding straight up on the low time frames. It's an interesting short for a local pullback to me, but for a higher low, just a strong technical level. And if you break back below this, you probably could target something like that, right? But you really don't want to get in the habit of shorting aggressively at a level if price is grinding up in a straight up uptrend on the 15-second chart, right? The trigger would probably have to be a break below this level, but sometimes, you can try to scalp in on low time frame weakness. I don't really like doing live trade setups on public live streams though, because there's just too many people that don't know how to manage risk. But this would just be an example. Let's say, I was interested in a TP here, obviously. Let's say you were interested in a short at this level. And so you're watching price action, price is coming into the level. Well, if you're going to execute a market short here, there's really no reason to do that now. I mean, probably at least, or the clear setup would just be waiting for price to break back below this high. If you're scalping, you got to wait for price to not be going straight up, right? Like there's not even an ounce of weakness yet. And, you know, sometimes at a level, I would short something like that. I would scalp into a short, but it's not really. Waiting for a range locally works as well. It's kind of interesting. If we start getting some more weakness here. Right into let's clean up the whole chart here. Just look at this as a simple level. Price very strong, impulsing straight up into the level, taking all these highs. I do kind of like these on this time frame, this impulse through the highs, and then kind of shorting into some weakness here. Volume is decent. There actually is something that looks like a channel here as well. It's not quite there yet. It's not quite clean. I don't even think this structure matters from a trending perspective. Really all that matters is this structure. I may have to take a little scalp short here. That may be a plan. What I mean by scalp is if we start forming some internally bearish structure here, I might take a short and I might TP even into this and then leave some running for this. And if we get kind of a little bit more weakness structurally on this time frame, I might take another short after the TP, add back to it. But this is kind of a potentially clean setup. Kind of want to see something like, there's a lot of ways to kind of, I mean, the most aggressive way is to just trade the trend line break, but the best thing to see probably is a little bit of range forming and then some lower highs start forming off of this. Something like that. There's lots of ways to find yourself in a short in price action like this in the bear scenarios. But the most important thing is, and this, I have to talk about this because there's going to be a lot of people here that just don't have any idea what they're doing when it comes to trading. Is a short like this looks really slick if it works, but they're really dangerous if you don't size them appropriately and if you don't cut them when you have to cut them, right? It's like if you're short and then this happens, you can't get wrecked. You just have to be sized to cut the short. But this is a pretty strong idea in terms of just running into a really clean technical level. Where it kind of starts looking really nice is if this breaks back below here and you come and run all these lows. And the reason I'm looking at this, it's not, of course, this is not just a random, I'm seeing price go up, so I want to short it. This is my target for my longs for a reason, right? And I'd like to maybe add back on a pullback to my longs. So could it make sense to consider some shorts here? Yeah. To me, it could. But I want to think about it's kind of annoying. So many running flats are the more rare version of a flat in theory. But like I wanted to add on a flat here, which a retest of this low. But this almost looks like a running flat. And so if so, so this is where I would keep an eye and where I might just fire off my short. If this starts rejecting, we'll just be patient. And then I would just take a short with risk management. I don't hate it, but you basically need to just see price start rejecting off of this for this setup because it's a scalp. I mean, you could run this high one more time, but this trade is sort of defined here. It's like you already, kind of are getting skeptical of the setup on a retest of this, and you're really not liking anything that looks like that on this time frame. Now, I don't recommend scalping the 5-second chart for most people. I'd recommend letting a little more structure form, structure your trades in ways that they have a lot of room to either play out or not play out. But you like to see a potential rejection here. And I think for me, I would just target into these lows as a TP. I'd want to kind of see if there is a rejection from here at all. What this internal structure looks like. And then I'll probably be adding back to my longs. But I'm not going to plan that trade out until there is a rejection. When you're shorting into a level like this, which is actually post breakout, it's a region at the GP here. The reason I would call this a scalp is because this is super important. if price starts bouncing off of here. And you have to, in my view, define the trade that way until this is lost. And then you can maybe start thinking of it a little bit more like a day trade if this gets lost. Until then, it is just a breakout. And a retest of that level isn't bearish. So like in the best case scenario for shorts here, you just nuke, but you really just are aware of something like that for a TP, and maybe a downtrend forms that you trade around or something like that. It's always possible we break out, right? Like this is just the beginning of weakness into a key level, but it's also just ranging and might just impulse through the highs. I will cut it if this doesn't just reject. Yeah, I'm just going to cut it. It's unfortunate because this is probably a 20% chance of just coming back down, but you've got to be really careful here. I might short it again, but I'm just going to wait for a range to play out here. Yeah, I'd probably short this again. If we take this low, and then a retest of something like this. But until then, I don't really want to be in a short if this is breaking out, price is holding above here. I'd rather just short a retest here. Kind of the same setup in a way as this, but just this structure. This is this is kind of like potentially bearish price action if we just start breaking down here. But we have to get back below this high. It's kind of funny. I mean, just my opinion is just treat levels really seriously. So if price is breaking above highs and holding them, take that seriously. Price is breaking below, take that seriously. This is a pretty important region. The primary idea behind the short, which is why it's also was the TP for my longs, is it's the major 618 from the all-time high to the low. Just a really clean technical region on the chart. You have a really nice idea of just coming and running all these highs, faking a breakout, so to speak, getting a pullback, and getting some kind of continuation. What I would like to see is something like this, and then come and run these highs, and then maybe get our deeper correction. Something like this. But I am a little bit of a sucker for clean rejections from something like this. Like this 618 region, the GP. Yeah. Let's put this back on. I'm really just deciding here if I want to get back short. I know I want to get back long on a pullback, but this is like what would a pullback even look like here in terms of this count? You'd have to call this a wave 3. But yeah, it just looks pretty strong here. So there's probably almost no short setup that's going to come here for me because we're just through the level now. Like even if we start getting weakness, it's hard to say. Yeah. Yeah, you'd almost probably have to consider a range here, maybe, and a lower high. This is really, I personally like shorting into stuff that looks like this when there's weakness because it's just super, it's kind of a super choppy, aggressive uptrend, stopping out shorts, trapping longs, and then price just rolls over. But you just wait for a break of structure at this point and a lower high. It's the non-log 618 here on the T. I really like using that as the level though because this whole idea is a log scale idea. But on non-log it is the Pico top of this channel and the 618. Yeah, there's a pretty good chance that I'm going to be shorting this again. In fact, this is rolling over now. If we get something like this, I'm just going to get back short. You already have some of this sort of like, this is potentially kind of bearish rolling over here. Kind of have basically two sorts of highs. One would be like you have your impulse, you reject off of established local highs and then roll over. The other would just be what we just got here, impulse, and then just price rolls over. I tried to short this version of it. Another alternative here for me would be if this holds up and this happens, I maybe would try to scalp short the wick high again. Just kind of curious. Not every swing starts as a scalp. Someone asked, why does every swing start as a scalp? It doesn't, but if you're looking, like, let's say you're shorting this. You're shorting a sweep of this high. Well, the actual high time frame relevant structure is the previous high. So until that is lost, the trade kind of needs to be defined that way. And so, like, let's say a scenario where you're short from the highs, price is rejecting, and this starts happening. Well, why not capture all the profits off that trade, and then if this starts happening and you want to define the trade that way, you can put the trade back on where you took it off, maybe with your stop here, but defined by the time frame of that major high. So this is a scalp because you're looking at all this structure and aware that this is support until proven otherwise. So that's your TP. You've locked in those profits, and you can always put on the risk again if that level flips. And then maybe that trade isn't treated so much like a scalp, and this is allowed to happen, but the risk is kind of redefined that way. A good example would actually just be how this played out on Doge. Like, let's say you're on the low time frames. This is the major high. And let's say it's kind of a similar structure in many ways. We have this kind of grinding, impulsing price action, a last impulse, and then price starts breaking down. Well, it's kind of a scalp because you have to TP into the SR flip, the uptrend, and you can't really turn it into a swing trade unless this level is flipping to resistance. So if we go to Aster, it's a very similar idea where, let's say, price impulses up here, you're short. You don't really look to turn this into a day trade or anything beyond a scalp until this level is lost. Sometimes it happens that price just runs straight down through the level, but it's kind of rare. So we could say the channel's tapped now. That's kind of a clean little local lower high rejection. Some of this trending structure is breaking. I mean, this is early signs of weakness. Really like those quick reactions, honestly. That's kind of what I was hoping was going to happen here. Yeah. I'm going to spend a little bit of time thinking about where I want to add to longs as well on Doge. Probably, or sorry, on Aster. Probably the simplest, most straightforward add here. Or add back, rather. It's just back into all these lows. I have taken a short here again. I'm going to trade it a little smaller, a little wider. Survive something like this. But, yeah. It's my risk. I'll do with it as I will. I'm going to clean up this chart. Would all-time highs make sense from here? Probably look to target these highs as a TP1 for the ad. I think in validation, like your entry, my entry, probably has to be around these lows. I'm not saying we're going to get this, by the way. I will take this long if I get it. And just TP into these highs. This is quite a clean, this is like a non-log scale. That's why I'm just thinking how cleanly price has been interacting with, like, say this is a perfect 618 on non-log coming and taking this high. Perfect GP non-log. Now we have the 618 on non-log tapping perfectly into an ascending channel. It like a nice impulse straight into the level. It's so technically clean here on non-log scale. Like it's almost perfect. But there's a big difference between the log scale levels and the non-log. And I was playing this idea on higher time frames, and I was watching the logs 618 here, but look how perfectly clean this is. It's literally a perfect intersection with this channel on the 618, which is one of my favorite setups. You also want these waves to complete in channeling structures. And so if this is, and this probably isn't this way, this is probably have to go with a sub wave count here. Like if this is an extended fifth wave, let's just think about this really quickly. This is really quite clean. Because if this is if this was a running flat into the fourth wave, I need to double check the rules. Maybe someone knows if the A wave here can come below the start of wave 1 if the C wave doesn't. Like if the wave is completing as a running flat, and this is the top of wave 1, you can also probably subdivide this, but this sure looks clean as a channeling 5 waves, doesn't it? And then you get some kind of ABC correction here. Come retest all these lows. And then maybe you start thinking about the really, really bullish ideas where this is a 1-2. Kind of too early to talk about that though, but this looks simply like a clean long idea. Oh, thanks, Depeche. He says, yes, it can. Yeah, I thought so. I think it's okay for this fourth wave to pass here on the A wave. This had quite the look of a flat, which is why I did want to long here again, but really has the look of a running flat here. Um, that's definitely not true, MK. MK says wave 4 may not enter wave 1 territory. A part of wave 4 is part of wave 4, so invalid. No, because then if that was the case, that might be true. There's all these kind of ambiguous things where you can kind of get some really clean counts, but there's sort of like edge cases where I'm sure I've thought about this before, but where you have something like this. But again, you can probably restructure this, even because this low was never taken. So you make it more like this. And then you just sort of solve the problem that way. That would actually be a lot better. I'd have to think about this. So many clean channels here, though. The one thing is it's an ascending channel, so ascending channels ascend. You can not break the channel or the level, and price can go higher. Like this. So yeah, I'm kind of liking this a lot still for a pullback. Somewhere here. Might not get it though. Yeah. Something like this would be, just would look clean. As a nice retest. Now, there probably will be some people, it might seem kind of aggressive to put on any short risk here because it's like, well, price. I mean, I think we're at a key level and all this local low time frame structure needs to be considered. Like what's actually happening here? Are we getting weakness or aren't we? But if you just look at, what major highs look like in terms of like, shorting an impulse into a key level, they look kind of bullish, right? Like look at this high into this 618. this high. It's like price is kind of going straight up and then it's not. Price is kind of going straight up and then it's not. And so even here, you know, as much as this just looks like price could just go to the moon, and it could, it's kind of what tops look like. I think that's one of the things, you know, whether it's longing the lows, and I literally longed here on Aster. Typically the top never looks particularly bearish and the bottom never looks particularly bullish. It's kind of marked by looking like price is going to go straight down or price is going to go straight up. But structurally, this is pretty clean, right? This ascending structure. And if we kind of think of it as like a predictive fib kind of level, like how clean would this be? You basically just have a perfect retest here, you know, take this low, kind of retest this whole horizontal level right into the 618. Just roll over. I like both. All right, I'll be right back and see if I'm stopped out of my short. All right, I'm back. Well, what do we have here? This, yeah, I'm not stopped out yet, but I have my stop slightly above the GP. But this is kind of a kind of a pretty aggressive little hunt here, if it's a hunt at all. But this is like scary, scary PA for shorts. But we'll see. We'll see if the 618 rejects here. If it doesn't, then I guess I'm cutting. It's kind of crazy in a way. You know, that is one thing about it's like I would never long up here. I mean, you could probably take some scalp longs for sure. But tops are kind of tricky. Like sometimes you catch the short and it works really nicely. But I do kind of have a rule that if my trade isn't really working, and obviously here I'm still giving it room because the level I'm trading is this. But if it's not working, I don't keep chasing it. I mean, let's just say, you know, price keeps doing this or whatever. Typically want my trades to work quickly and be clean. But this just starts looking quite bullish if we just are doing this. Oh, oh yeah, I turned volumes on. But yeah, I'm gonna be really interested in taking this long as well if we can get it. It is. There's a lot of confluence. I mean, I know, you know, you can say a lot of things about whatever, but I mean, ideally, this rolls over. And I'm not saying that just because I'm short. I'm just saying, you know, structurally, like you can have short trades where it's okay for price to keep going higher and, you know, you're not stopped out and it doesn't really invalidate the trade. And that happened with my long setup on Aster where you know, I'm starting to scale in here, and then I'm adding into the long, and price going a little lower from where I entered doesn't matter. It doesn't invalidate the trade. But structurally here, you really want some of this look to go away locally, right? You really want like this to roll over because you don't want to keep seeing this. Because if you keep seeing this, it just looks like this, right? But this region of the 618 still important. If only I knew what was going to happen, it'd be much easier. Yeah, I know I can undo the drawings, but sometimes I get so many drawings and I don't really remember what order I did them in. I think it's going to be kind of fun to watch Aster here, see how it plays out, and then maybe I'll hit the live stream. I guess I'll put in that I'm short on Aster in the Discord. I forget. I always forget to do that if I'm live. Now, of course, this is a good example, although it's not quite how I was allocating my risk there, but um, maybe you poke at a short there and you just get out and you say, you know what, I'm just going to let this idea go. And I ended up re-entering, and I'm not saying this short's going to work. I really have no idea. But in theory, if it did work, you get paid 6-1 on the one that worked, pays for 6 losses, and you rinse and repeat. If it doesn't work, then you're not so happy. You have taken 2 losses on a similar idea. But yeah, we are just entering this kind of period where you just want to start seeing some kind of break of this structure, because this is not good for shorts. You want to see trends breaking, double tops, that trend breaking, not just new high, higher low, new high, higher low. Sometimes it's not always about where price actually goes, it's just about how it's getting there, right? And I guess the similar example was when I was taking a breakout long on Doge here, and I gave the example that I would never take a breakout long here on Doge with this straight up impulse. But when price is grinding up on higher lows and higher highs, I would trade it along into the impulse. And that's because this grinding structure actually is quite bullish, even if it's after an impulse and looks kind of like it could be bearish. But the same thing is on Aster here is, even though price is already impulsed, and you might think, well, the short is a good idea because, price probably has to correct. You don't really want to be seeing this forming, frankly, into your shorts, because this is just grindy uptrending structure into resistance. So that's why I'm saying that probably need to see this break sooner rather than later. But we maybe have a little bit of low time frame weakness starting to form. Hasn't broken this part of the uptrend, but at the very least, we're getting a lower high. And ideally, the trending structure starts breaking, maybe get a retracement for a higher low, lower high rather, and we can see some continuation. You can draw these trending structures cleanly as well. So we get this and then either boom or boom. All right. Well, while we wait to see what happens here, and again, this is not, I'll probably hold through one more test of these highs, but not really what you want to see, frankly. Yeah, you basically are hoping for a rejection here. I mean, there's not really anything to do other than just hope this plays out like this and not like this, or you're getting it stopped. It's a little tricky, you know. If you start seeing this, I would just let the trade go still, probably. We'll just delete everything one by one. Even this is actually, you know, kind of bullish. We'll see. We hope for a range. I like this level though. I like the structure. I mean, I'm quite happy to be short here, one way or the other. What I'm kind of going to be more annoyed at is if we do something like this and I get stopped out, and then we roll over. This is like, this is a caveat because, you know, this can be true before price breaks out too, but I like price action that feels so, like I like shorting price action that feels like you cannot short it. Like it's like this is just, this is it. This is the moment. It's so bullish, no weakness. And then you have to be really careful because really bullish price action looks like that too. But then stuff starts happening that's suddenly not so bullish, and then price just rolls over. But the only problem is that can happen on various time frames, especially at key levels like this. And we're kind of we're kind of right in between either this just being really bullish or being kind of trappy. It's the same thing with longs, right? Like how many people, well, just a great example, probably many of you were in this scenario, right? When I kind of started bear posting about Aster here, how many people do you think were just as eager as a person could be to fire off longs here and here and here and here and whatever? It's kind of like these levels are like, and you know, I did short this, for example. These levels are like you can't short it, right? It's like just visually, if you're not an experienced trader, you think like this is so bullish, like it's price is just going to go straight up. There's no way, you know, longs are firing off, and then price just goes straight down. And then all those same people are so happily selling here. They're like, Aster was a scam. It's just going to go straight down, and then it goes straight up, and that happens here. And I personally just like shorting here, and I like longing here, but sometimes you try to short here and, you know, you're shorting here or something like that, but it's not here, it's here, right? So sometimes it doesn't work out. But this is just that kind of price action that it's just like you can just imagine how everyone's feeling. Everyone who's not long because they got stopped out or liquidated on the big move down and didn't long anything on the move up, and they're just seeing the coin they believed in a week ago is now finally doing the thing. It's going straight up. You're gonna have all these people longing here. It's pretty easy to long, which I'm not even saying it's that crazy. I mean, you know, you put a stop under here and you just try to long for the uptrend. But yeah, I think this is a reasonable place to look for shorts. But you got to keep an eye on this low time frame structure to kind of get a sense of what's going on here, because even even this is kind of bullish. I mean, everything actually is playing out quite bullishly. We need this to kind of start ranging and turn around here. It's not so bad to have a little double top here, but we still need to break down this trend of higher lows. Um, somebody says, what are your chart colors? They're really clean. And then someone responded, white and blue. But I'll say this, it's not always the case that when price is going higher that, you see that people are aggressively buying and getting FOMO and whatever. I mean, there's a lot of cases like here on Doge, if you looked at order flow, people were really selling into this and we ended up with a bullish uptrend, which is why I took the breakout long. But we did on this initial rejection, I didn't look at order flow before I left. There was just a massive sell off here. And then we just impulse to the upside again. We could probably, give me a second. Let me pull up Astra order flow. I really haven't looked at it so much. I don't use altcoin order flow on every single setup that I trade. Just price action, but could be interesting to look at. Probably take a moment or two to get acclimated to yeah. Okay. I just have to say, this is almost just cut the short and just wait for another impulse to the upside or a breakdown in structure. I mean, I'm kind of close on it one way or the other. I'm going to see if this forms another lower high here. This is yeah, this is kind of grindy, pretty grindy structure. There is a decent amount of aggression here, but can this drag down? Like this is still mostly selling, getting absorbed. You have the aggressive buying, aggressive sellers, aggressive buying, aggressive sellers. You kind of have, I'm not that familiar with uh, the degree of this order flow yet. I'd need to go back and look at it, but you do have like grindy uptrend order flow, either for another impulse, and you have the price action of the higher lows. A little bit of a range here. You mostly have here some form of longs firing off onto these impulses, and then on the short pullbacks, they're stopping out. And so the price action is kind of defined by like longs opening, closing aggressively, long opening, closing aggressively. But this is yeah, I would say more bullish locally, and we're not taking down any of the bullish structure. Now, I can all change quickly with another impulse. And rejection. Yeah, I close like 90% of my long on Aster longs. Yeah, all this holding up, you don't love to see if you're short. Ooh, there's some big volume. That was a big spike, relatively. We'll see what happens here. Price is potentially in a parallel channeling structure, but little ways to go. We have to see what happens at these local highs. Now I'm kind of hoping for this to range or maybe putting something like this, but yeah, this is like right on the edge of either being bullish or hopefully the top. So we'll see. We will see. A little bit. Is this not the Bybit order flow? Just confused. Is the volume not to scale here? 30K, 67K, 670K, 800K. No, this makes a little more sense. Even though this is a nice rejection, still need to look, and hope that this all starts breaking down because this is now internally still rangy, right? So, but it is potentially a break of our first kind of, it's a break of this section of the uptrend, right? So it's like higher, high, higher, higher, high, higher, low, higher, low. This is a lower low, but it's still just into the trend and it's potentially into a range. So it's not really anything to celebrate getting to break even, but maybe it just rolls over. When the tops come in, they usually come in quick. But, if this does nuke, you can kind of just think about like how I don't know how trappy price action is. Like it's kind of I don't know. I mean, I think the average person who's kind of excited about Aster or this move to the upside, they probably don't really have any concept of much, right? Like it's just hard not to think price goes up, that's really good, buy more, leverage long, and then be like, what the F happened if this happens, right? We retrace yesterday's whole move or get some ranging into the weekend and a breakdown. Because even this is like, it's kind of outside of the bounds of even like right on the edge of being so bullish and so bearish. uh, but you'd feel like a little bit of a fool if you're looking at this idea and you're not willing to put on some short risk. The thing is, it doesn't really matter. Like I've had people message me and like let's say they're in this short, for example, and price does this, and they say like, "Oh, thank you so much. I'm in this short." But even if this happens, nothing really matters until you take profits, right? Like until you've locked something in, it really doesn't matter what price does. I mean, even if for my long setups from down here, if I didn't take any profits off of that position ever, then it doesn't really matter, right? It's not nothing to quote unquote celebrate. And even a rejection like this really isn't either. It's there's so many scenarios that can play here, right? Could roll over, we could range, we could do this, we could do this. What? What I mean, it's like it's so bullish. Like if you look when I'm saying it's so bullish and so bearish, it's almost like it's so bullish it is bearish. Like if you look at this price action with everyone that's excited about Aster, like, and we even saw that on the 15-second chart, that huge volume spike there. It's like how many people are just like, oh, it's confirmed, it's going up, and then literally price just goes straight down from that high. It looks so bullish up until this point, right? Just kind of the nature of highs. But but if you're aware of how I like to set up my trades, and you're probably not so surprised why I would be interested in shorts here. The same reason I started bear posting there, and I wanted shorts here on Aster. I like clean trending structures, parallel structures into key fibs like this. So but this would be a nice example of a break in structure, right? We've broken, it doesn't mean price has to go down, but it's at the very least, you know, in the context of this section of the uptrend, we've broken the uptrend, we've broken the series of higher lows on basically every local time frame here, except for this one, but there's not really a trend there, so to speak. And so even this could be an SR flip, would be really bearish, but even a push up like this, now you have the potential of backtesting the trend and putting in your lower highs. And, you know, the trade starts to look a little bit better. Now BTC, if we go to the 1 minute chart on Bitcoin, this is really the this is really the kind of setup I was initially going for on Aster, where you have this like really aggressive uptrend, it breaks, and then you just short the next lower high rejection. And I know it's kind of hard to explain when the version that you traded didn't work, but I trade this a lot when I'm scalping. When you have a really aggressive uptrend, you start seeing it break down. You have just a series of local highs. Maybe it's something like this. And then when this is rejecting, I just short it. Now, it doesn't even have to work half the time, right? Like if you're shorting like this, that's 11 to 1 if you catch a big part of this move, 8 to 1, 7 to 1. But and then you just cut it if it's kind of a fake out, so to speak. But on Aster, that didn't really work out for the low time frame version of the setup. You have the really aggressive uptrend, the break, and you start putting in the lower high price action, and we just got continuation. But the big thing is, which is why, like, it's hard to explain, but it's why I would cut the scalp short so aggressively. And I ended up obviously getting back short, but it's because if I'm going to trade that setup 1,000 times, I'm not really guessing. I'm not really trying to guess if like, oh, price could still reject somewhere. I just have to think, do I want to put on a different type of short setup somewhere? And I just decided to trade it wider into this level and not as a scalp, because the setup is now redefined, right? Like if this was the setup, just structurally, it's not a guess. It's not a guess of if price is going to go up or down. It's just, I want to be short. This would be super nice if this rolled over. Just super bearish. But I want to be short if this is happening. And I just don't want to be short if this is happening, because my whole setup is defined by this break of trend like this. And had I been trading this setup on Bitcoin, it would have worked. And I would have just said, well, I'm actually going to short this somewhere in here. And if we break out, I'll just stop it out. And if I do that 1,000 times, then I've always kept my losses really small on these setups, and my winners are much bigger. But if I'm always doing it like this, and then I'm saying, well, you never know, maybe it could reject from here or here or here, and you're not stopping out your short, and then price goes to 500K, you all of a sudden turn to scalp on the 15-second chart into the biggest loss of your life. And there's so many ways to define a trade. So like that would be a really aggressive short that, I mean, I've taken many long setups and short setups under the same premise, but this is just an example of it not working. And so I'm just going to cut it. And even this started flipping to support. It's like you can tell the difference. And I wouldn't say your confidence necessarily, but your understanding of the setup rather. If you trade this even 50 times, you'll understand the feeling of the price action and the difference of the price action of when this trade is working and when it's not. Like if you remember at that point of the live stream, I was saying like you really just want to see you really just want to see this reject. Like you really don't want to see this doing this for this type of setup, because you want to see this roll over. So anyways, but the point is I decided to redefine the setup, not so locally bound, which I think was a reasonable decision, right? My biggest fear is after I go on a long tirade to look back at the chat and just see um, people saying that I'm on the wrong screen or I'm muted or something. My stop loss on Aster was just outside of this GP or golden pocket. So, you know, I basically, if this idea plays out, I get something like 6-1 on my risk. There's a chance, although if I TP, I'd be looking to add back. Like if it plays out into this type of correction, I may TP these lows and then look to add back. You'll probably, I know this is like, you know, that's too much to explain, but like this would be a setup I would trade quite often. It something I did on Doge, right? Like this for the continuation. And I longed Doge here, and then I had that as my TP. It's the retest here. I do just apply the same things, but I mean, there is context dependence a little bit, but I would look to do this, a similar thing on Aster here probably. If we got a big rejection, I don't know if we will, but I would look to probably TP. I may, depends on the local price action, even look to trade up into this, and then I might look to add back to my shorts. But this is all like local. So like this is local time frame. If I'm there, if I like what I see, I might take it. It's not like the I might execute it live. But let me just draw out how I would look to trade this. So anyone who says like, yo, you were short on Aster, now you're saying you're long, I would probably look to do something like this. And this is probably the GP from this pivot. I'd have to think about the, I guess it would be from here, if that's the way forward. But it'd be like something like this, right? You'd come and you'd run this impulse low. I like to trade around impulse origins. I mean, this doesn't even have to be Elliott wave. It's just like there's really simple structures here. We can even get rid of this. You just have a retest of this previous high, flipping it to support. You have an impulse, revisit the impulse origin. You got some cheap 618 confluences there. Nice reactive level. Lots of liquidations and stops probably piled up there. You maybe TP1 on your short. You maybe even look for a little local long setup. And maybe when price is down there, I would get onto the low time frames and try to set it up a little bit cleaner than I did this time around. What really probably kind of threw me off a little bit here was, it didn't throw me off. It's not like maybe even something I would correct for. It's just I'm watching this region above these highs at this log scale GP, but then just seeing how clean this structure was maybe after the fact here. I still like the short. By the way, it might not work. We're starting to maybe see a shift in the trend, but we need to start holding some of the bearish ideas now. But anyways, if price rejects, it would probably look something like this, and then maybe I would even look to play back into the short. I could even add a little bit more nuance just now, whether or not I would be interested in playing the short add, which is what can happen on this downtrend, and it happened on Doge, is if we do reject, then you can end up forming highs here, and then the trigger is really clean, taking those highs. So in that case, I would add back to the shorts, take profits on the local long setup, and then look to add back to the swing long. And that's how I would trade it. And so if we go back to Doge, we kind of had some clean examples of that. It was actually cleaner even on the 5-minute chart here. But I mean, I can go back directly to these setups, but something like that where you form some highs to take into the level, and then it kind of makes the idea cleaner. But you know, for a lot of people who aren't trading this way, they might think it's kind of crazy to plan out trades this far ahead. It's not even really like, I'll just kind of try to adapt to whatever price is actually doing. But if this happens, these are the kinds of things you'd expect to see in this scenario. It's always possible that this whole uptrend just holds and we just impulse to all-time highs, right? And then you maybe SR flip this, get a nice bounce, or breakdown. But if we do reject, that's something like how I would look to trade it. Yeah, I did have a short on ETH, but I closed it. But I'm interested in getting back into it, but I'm not so much in a hurry. I haven't looked at some of this local price action. Nice little local 618 there. It's probably reasonable, honestly, to pick this short. I wouldn't mind getting some confluent ideas with Bitcoin taking all-time highs, but you know, we can imagine a scenario like all-time highs doesn't have to come now. All-time highs can come next week. And we can imagine scenarios where, you know, some structure forms here, we run these lows, and then we do something like that. And that's perfectly possible. One thing that you will find as you take more and more trades is it kind of doesn't matter what price does. Like, as long as you get more in the mindset of trying to take clean trade setups, and less in the mindset of like looking at price and trying to predict what it's going to do next and either go long or short. Yeah, for me, I did take a short on this trending setup. I had that idea from down here, but unfortunately, I did get wicked out on this. And now it's like, do I really want to short it again? It's not unreasonable, but I've had a pretty good week or two. And part of me is just like, we're coming into the weekend. If I miss these setups, what next week I'm either going to be taking long setups or I'll be taking short setups. It depends where price is and what's going on, but I probably just kind of end up printing anyways. And I took this Aster short. I don't know. I don't really know if I'm that interested in trying to get back short before the weekend. Maybe like if I was 1 minute scalp trading ETH instead of Aster, you know, probably might have considered taking a short on something like this. Just getting in up here. But so this is where, I don't know if it's a perfect trend line test, but this is where, you know, ideally we're putting in a lower high and we're getting the bearish scenario. I'm saying ideally, just doesn't really matter. I mean, I might take a stop loss, but ideally for the short setup. I mean, you have basically what you want to see: a break of structure, a new low, and now hopefully a lower high into the local 618, and then hopefully price rolls over. But there's other scenarios here that can play, like arranging stuff, double top into that, and whatever. BNB. Is BNB's current PA similar to BTC rolling over earlier today? So I'm assuming you mean in the 1 minute chart. I'm going to say no. It's a little bit similar, but the only thing I'd say that it makes it a little dissimilar is how long this range is. It's tough. It's a tough one. You know, if this happens on BNB, I just have to think about this for 1 second. I mean, if this happens on BNB, it could be that kind of scalp short setup. It's quite protracted, and it's quite different in some ways. Like you could in I would almost consider it's just this isn't really like let me get into lower time frames. This isn't really even a grindy uptrend in some ways. It's more of a just like an impulse. Like it's like Bitcoin was a trend. In a way that this would be more like the setup. Yeah. I don't think it's that unreasonable to short, honestly. It's as a scalp. I mean, you almost wouldn't mind scenarios where you actually do this and like shorting the reaction. Like kind of the classic BART setup here. And the BART could it could run the high. Just run these. And then you're just looking for a quick continuation. Another one of these fat liquidation wicks. Now, there's a little bit of a difference that could be explained, which is that BNB is at all-time highs, like to the minute, basically. So there's a little bit of a context difference there, where you have this into all-time highs. And so I would just say, generally speaking, like even this as a front run of all-time highs on Bitcoin is kind of interesting, right? Because people are longing for a breakout to all-time highs and they get faked out. If you find yourself, like when you're in price discovery and you're not trading like clean structural levels, you're just trying to short the top. That's why I would just say I would steer clear of it for the most part, especially as a new trader. Like for example, I don't find myself very often trying to find the coin that is rolling and breaking up out of all-time highs and then go to its 1 minute chart or 15-second chart and be trying to short it, because that's not how I consistently make money. It's not that there's no way to do it, because you could get in a lot of trouble playing that game into this uptrend, right? It's like, oh, there's a setup. Nope. Oh, there's a setup. Nope. Oh, there's a setup. And you do have to ask yourself a little bit, you know, of all the things you could be shorting on the 15-second chart trying to scalp. I know it can feel kind of like, oh, it would be really cool to get a short on BNB because it's gone straight up to all-time highs and I could short the all-time high and then short it down to zero. But I would just preach caution here. In preach caution in just the idea of trying to find those types of setups on a coin that is breaking out of all-time highs with structure that looks like this. Eventually there probably will be pullbacks, but it's probably not the best use of your time. I mean, this, you could make really clean arguments for some of these types of setups here. But then you also have to be the boss that holds the trade and gets something out of it. So you also have to think about your targets, right? So you're kind of thinking, you'll hold it to zero, but you'll, like, what if this happens? Then are you just closing it at break even? If you're paper trading, I think it's a great experience. If this isn't a setup that you would trade typically, you kind of have an impulse, you have some ranging here, you kind of have a way to define this trade so it holds in a couple different scenarios, which is like it just rolls over or you get some kind of Bart Simpson setup, and then you just navigate where you're gonna take profits and why, right? But live trading, it's not really something you trade. I wouldn't suggest it. Scalping for me is like you're asking if I risk 1% of my account when I scalp. Sometimes I'm risking like risk is kind of not fixed at so much with scalping because it's so structurally dependent, like, and reaction dependent. So sometimes you are just risking not nothing, but it's like, for example, if the trade doesn't work, sometimes you're taking that trade at a slight profit or break even or a slight loss because you're not actually letting your stops run when you're scalping. Like, let's say, for example, let's say I'm scalping this 618 on Aster. So this rejection's happened and I've shorted the lower high, which was the other setup that I said I was going to take, but I end up just holding my other short. But let's just say I'm scalping this. Well, sometimes I might at this point, like I might short this, and if price doesn't hold this rejection, even if I'm sized up here, and say that's my 1% stop, I'm just shorting it for the quick rejection. And if I don't get it, I'm just going to cut it. I don't care. I'll look to scalp up there, and maybe I'm risking 0.1% of my stop. If we get the rejection, I probably am not holding through a breakout here. And if I'll just re-enter. And so in scenarios like this, I may get into a situation where I'm shorting this level, and it doesn't work, and I didn't even take a loss. If that makes sense. So if you're scalping, like really scalping the 10, 15 second chart, then you're really making decisions very quickly, like cutting trades, entering trades, cutting trades. But I think that is a little complex. There's nothing wrong, by the way. There's nothing wrong by just like trading something like this and just letting the trade either play out or not. I mean, I'd say for most people, that is a skill in itself to just be able to put on the trade to find the risk. And sometimes I would take a trade and I would just let my stop run. It's kind of like worst case scenario, I'll just let my stop run. If I see a reason that I really want to get out of a trade, it's kind of more what I'm saying. I might just get out of it anywhere for any reason. And not to kind of make things too complicated, but probably if I'm scalping this, like really scalping this, I'm taking profits and I'm adding back. And yeah, there's like 8 trades in here, sort of thing. But that's like a little much. You're basically just pretend this is the daily chart and you just trade this like the daily chart, right? So you have a range. You have a range. You have rounded, grindy, bullish price action. This is why I don't know what's going to happen at the highs of the range, but the reason I'm kind of saying, hey, you don't really like to see this for your shorts is, and it's just I'm not something I'm going to do on live stream, but because this is kind of scalp longing. Like if I'm sitting and staring at this chart on the 10-second chart, you're kind of wanting to long into this, but maybe short into these. Now, in the context of this whole region of price, you might be looking at this kind of idea for your short setup on kind of this time frame. But locally here, this is like, oh, this is probably bullish, and there's always a chance we just break out. And so you're probably longing down here and shorting up here and longing down here and shorting up here. And maybe if this structure breaks, you're shorting again on the retest. You're longing at these lows. You're cutting that if that breaks. And that's kind of how scalping really goes. And so I would just say that you're not really, in most cases, for myself, just like eating 1% stops on scalps. The answer to that question, someone said, should I use more leverage to increase the size what I am trading with? Is almost certainly no. To give a more nuanced answer, leverage shouldn't be used, generally speaking, to trade more money than you have. There's a lot of practical reasons to use leverage. Like the most simple one to understand is exchange risk management. So if you have $1 million that you want to trade with, you might not want to put that on some shady centralized exchange and then them close down or frees up your money. You might put a small percentage of it on there and then use leverage to kind of size your trades appropriately to your size or your trading account. You wouldn't want to put your $1 million in and then trade with 50x leverage, $50 million positions, right? But then beyond that, the more kind of nuanced answer is you shouldn't probably be trading with any size or risk if you're having to ask somebody else what size you should be trading with, because ultimately by the time you're trading with any kind of meaningful risk, let's say beyond paper trading or a few dollars, you should be an extremely experienced trader. Like you, and your decision on how much money you're going to risk on your trading setup should be coming from your own data, right? You should be able to say, well, I've taken 200 trades and these were the outcomes and these were my drawdowns and these were my loss streaks and this is how these trades work. And based on that, to trade these setups comfortably, I'm going to be risking this amount. But if somebody, like I do have brand new traders that ask me, they say, hey, I am starting trading this week. How much should I risk per trade? Or how much should I expect to make in my first month? It's like, you've never even taken a trade. I mean, you shouldn't expect to make anything. You should expect to lose money if you trade with real money, because statistically, that's what 95% of traders will do, or beginning traders. And if you don't, so with that being said, you should just trade with paper trading and build up some personal trading history and data and then make your decisions based on that. But yeah, so my answer is essentially that. You should not use leverage to increase the size you're trading with. And I'm confident of that answer simply because you're asking the question. It's not really a question anyone should be asking anyone else. This is kind of getting boring. It is kind of interesting. I'll just say this is like this is, we've got some ranging price action here, but this is like really compelling corrective structure forming here on BTC. Like I wouldn't short here. I mean, if I was going to short, I would have hopefully shorted one of these retracements, but it's just kind of interesting. I think next week is probably going to be amazing. I mean, Sunday, Monday, the rest of the week next week, I would imagine there's going to be really clean setups. Like the ideal scenario would be to, maybe I'm biased because like I took profits on a long and I'm in a short, but the what I would love to see is just price maybe chop around and then retrace into Monday or Sunday and then take some long setups into the week ahead. I mean, I obviously I've gone over my plan for Aster. If we reject here, something like that, it may not even take this long. It'll probably happen on the weekend. Maybe this is Sunday. Maybe this Sunday pump into this nice level. And maybe this is Monday. Windows, yeah. I don't know. Always possible. We just carry on higher. And Monday we're trading up here. And Bitcoin we're breaking out through all-time highs. But I usually don't trade the weekends. I've been trading Sunday a lot more because the reason I don't trade the weekends is they typically nothing happens. But Sundays have been quite important lately. So I've started being a little more active on Sundays depending on what's going on. But anyways, I might end the live stream here. We'll see. I mean, starting to get some quote unquote bearish structures forming here on Aster. Uptrend is breaking into an important level, end up forming kind of a little range, triple top, break the structure down, retest resistance, maybe a little local downtrend holding. So this kind of thing can happen too, but whatever, we'll see. It's Friday. I'm not really too compelled to like take trades right now. I mean, I'm in this trade. I took profits on a long. I don't really feel like I need to do anything on Bitcoin. I wouldn't mind all-time highs getting taken. I wouldn't mind that just happening, honestly, on Monday. It's kind of be annoying to have to think about taking a trade like this on Saturday or Friday night. I just don't like trading I don't like the idea of major levels being traded on like a Saturday or Friday night. But I wouldn't mind a retracement and be trading at levels like that Monday. Will I trade this on a weekend? Probably. But I don't mind just kind of chilling for the weekend and hoping that there's all the major levels come more into the weekly close and Monday type area. And maybe grab a little dub here on Aster and then just have a great week next week. That would be the plan for me. Do I go to church? No, I do not. Thank you. How do you guys get these little crowns by your name? What did those mean? Do I have a personal document with all the setups in your playbook or just all intuition? I have most of these setups defined in the educational materials. I appreciate the kind words, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. This was a long live stream. I didn't intend to sit for 3 hours, but I had to risk making a fool of myself, shorting a generational breakout on Aster. Still possible we break out. I don't know how else to say this. I did say on X, I did a post when I longed Doge here, and I said something like, many of you will probably have seen me talking about this Doge long for a while now, because I've actually talked about it since like way up here. And before you take it, understand that no one can predict what price will do. I'm paraphrasing, but this was the X post. No one can predict what price will do. I'm taking this long with no idea if this trade will work. I can't know. All I can do is define the trade and use risk management. So if the trade doesn't work, then I'll just be stopping it out. And I'm not saying this like to be, arrogant or whatever. I think it's probably generally true. Just that I added that I'm probably one of the most accurate traders in terms of quote unquote predicting what price will do. Not that I don't get it wrong. I get it wrong, of course. But, setting up trades well ahead of time and executing them, and seemingly like magic, I predicted what price will do. So if anyone should be saying that they know what's going to happen next, maybe it would be someone like me. And I'm telling you, I do not know. I do not know. So how could someone who's probably, seemingly more able to predict price action than anybody or most people, how could they be saying they don't know, right? But the truth is with Aster here, I do not know. I really don't know. I have no idea. I mean, that should be clear when I'm taking the trades on a live stream and I'm thinking about what I'm thinking about. It's like, I don't know. I mean, if it's going to work, it probably should start looking a lot more like this than like this. And it's a nice kind of idea and level. And we now really have this clean, you could argue that probably the best setup was either this or this. I mean, how often do you just see this structure where you have a high, you retest it, and that's a pretty common pattern, right? Or just shorting this. I mean, I kind of tried to short something like this in here. But anyways, the point is, I generally know what I want to see. But somebody responded, how's this guy bragging when he just admitted he doesn't even know what's going to happen? It's like missing the entire point, right? That there is no way to know. How could you ever know, right? And you can only get the sense that you know. And the sense that you know is a lie that you tell yourself. Because if I predict the exact top and bottom 5 times in a row, and I think, oh my gosh, I actually just know what's going to happen. That's kind of like you're flipping a coin, a weighted coin, and 70% of the time it lands on heads, and you say it's going to land on heads, and it does it 3 times in a row, and you say, I actually know what's going to happen next. It's like, I thought it was going to land on heads, and it did. But it's just probabilities. It's a random event. You don't know. There's no way to know. And that being said, I'm short on Aster. I have no idea what's going to happen. If I got stopped out or get stopped out, it's not a big deal. I'll look for another trade next week and I'll do it again. And then people will say, how do you predict that? And then the second I lose a trade, they'll be like, you're a scammer. All right. Hope you guys had fun. I probably just have to let this shake out on Bitcoin and some of this other stuff. I mean, unless I was in here scalping some of this stuff, it's just kind of hard to call this a major idea. Now with a slight front run of all-time highs, kind of going to need to wait for that or wait for some kind of retracement. I could but my tendency here, because I take the weekends off typically, I'm just gonna throw this into a folder for now. I don't know what's all in there. Would be just to kind of wait to see how the weekend shakes out. I mean, probably at a glance, without doing any additional technical analysis, like I can't not be interested in just something that takes these lows into a clean SR flip. But I would probably incorporate new price action into that setup if I was going to take it. So it's like I'd wait till we have something here, and I would probably start thinking about if there's a channeling structure, and then I would probably think about how price reacts with these local lows and what's going on with order flow, and I might set up something like that towards all-time highs. But it's not really any point in thinking about that too much right now, right? Otherwise, I would just be waiting for all-time highs and then taking that short setup if it presents itself. What would I look to enter long on Doge? I kind of just made money trading Doge, but I'm a little frustrated. I'm a little frustrated with how I handled this, because I was just trading Bitcoin and updating it on the 1 minute chart. I mean, I'm not saying it cost me a lot of money, just not taking that trade. I'm in a swing long. It's like, it's kind of a mess here coming into the weekend, what I would do. But like, look how clean. Just, there's like no excuse. There's no excuse not to be in this long. I think the trend's off here, but it's just such an easy long to take. Did it not bounce? Oh, it doesn't really matter if it bounced perfectly or not. But you have a perfect SR flip. Run these lows. I mean, you just have really beautiful low time frame price action. Whether you wanted to trade the sweep, your validation can be so tight, and you even have like little breakout ideas that you could trade into. And it's just such an easy long to take. It's crazy that I would have taken that, I think, if I was just kind of thinking and paying attention a little bit more and not doing that stupid 1 minute update series in the Discord. No, just kidding. But what would I do to look for longs? I don't know, man. I'm in swing longs, but I'm just not probably gonna trade anything until Sunday or Monday. So yeah, I'd have to really think about this, but we're kind of just ranging sideways now. Like, could we think about... Okay, you know what? Let me think about it for 1 second. Let me think about it for 1 second. If we hold up this SR flip, there's a big level above us. Aligned with some nice highs. Just like a really simple idea. Two. A, B, C. Could it be traded as a flat here? I would have to do some work to count this properly. But like, I'm trying to think if like the first retest of this looks pretty just clean and simple. Would another retest of this just be the long setup? Like, you just have a range here. Could even give it a little bit more play off of this low. you end up with something like this, and even just TP into these highs, because price is clearly doing something like a range here. I mean, it's might not take the range lows, but we have a high and we made another low, and then we ran the highs and wicked perfectly off of it. Nice clean rejection, maybe a lower high, maybe run the lows again, and then send off. It's the most relevant structure here. I mean, just do we hold up this SR flip or not? And we have some nice local lows. I think it's a GP from here. I don't think that really matters. I'd have to think about that for a second. Like structurally, this might not be where I would place, how I would count this internally. I want to count this internally. There's probably just some simple ideas here of just put the trade on at the range low, and if it holds, it holds. And if it doesn't, you get stopped out. I don't think that's too complicated. The like, you don't even have to think really about Elliott wave stuff here. It's like for the same reason you might be looking to short this high locally. And then I wouldn't trade this internal short, but you know, maybe you have something like this and this carries higher and you look to play this. It's almost too easy. But you just really have simple invalidation. I mean, you could try to be a monster and a greedy pig and try to trade it really tight, and just basically your entry is a reclaim of this, your validation's below here, and TP there. Probably that, if I was going to trade anything. You know, that's probably a scalp I'd put on, or a low time frame day trade I would put on if I was at the charts at the time. Yeah, looking kind of nice and weak now. Gonna take some lows. Ugh. Trading's like really easy sometimes, really hard. It's actually, this isn't a hard short for me to take. It's a hard short to take on a public live stream, in the sense of it's not hard for me to take it. It's just kind of hard to walk through the idea and price action to knowing that a lot of people watching have no idea about anything. So they're just like, what the F are you doing? And you're not trying to justify the short to anybody because you need to justify it to them. You're thinking about the short for yourself, but you're not trying to explain the short to anyone because you want them to take the short, because I don't think people should take trades they don't understand. You're trying to explain it to people, the concepts, and yeah, it's hard to do just knowing that a lot of the people watching won't have much, if any, experience with what you're talking about. So anyways, it's been a great live stream, guys. I'll wrap it up here, and I'm gonna get off the charts probably for the weekend, hopefully.